Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 286th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the MSP studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How you doing today, Kyle?
Doing great, Cameron. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Did you know deer season's over?
I'm a poser, man. It's not real. I'm not a real camo guy.
I'd say you are.
I gotta come clean.
You're more real than I am. You're actually wearing it.
For audio only folks, I'm wearing a nice camo shirt.
I like it.
Thanks.
I remembered what I was trying to think about earlier.
Just now?
Yes.
What jogged your memory?
I don't even know.
This camo shirt?
Yeah, but it's about fans showing up to the basketball games. I'm going to write that down.
Write that down.
Anyway. Yeah. Welcome in, everyone. What all are we going to talk about this week, Kyle? We're going to talk about basketball is bad still.
It's a hodgepodge.
It's almost over. We're going to talk a little bit recruiting and transfer portal, that type of thing. And we'll talk about spring football a little bit. Might not be a terribly long episode, but we'll see what we can do. Yeah, I just had to get that out of my head, or else
Hey, I'm glad you remembered.
I remembered it and forgot it earlier. So, yeah, basketball 0-17 in SEC play. How does that make you feel?
Well, at this point, I don't even mind. I think we're going for history, and it'll be really something we can remember for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I'd say we stopped feeling anything a while ago.
Yeah. Yeah, the games have not mattered for a very, very long time. And I have kept tuning in for the most part.
Yeah.
And just to be a part of history, really.
I was watching last night and fell asleep on the couch. Missouri was down by like 12, maybe like 5 minutes into the second half. And then this morning I see that Auburn scored over 100 points.
Yeah.
They scored 32 points in the final 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they're really pretty good about carving out maybe like a 5 to 10 minute period where the game is really fun to watch. They're usually good for a few minutes of entertainment, but not the second half of last night's game, though. So I understand why you fell asleep.
Yeah, I fell asleep before it even got too terribly bad. Janai Broome was your KenPom MVP, and like the entire Auburn front court just had their way with Missouri. They shot 62% from two, while Missouri shot 34%.
Yeah, I mean, we've said many times throughout this conference season, like, this might be the one. I mean, every episode there for a while, you were saying, like, hey, we might split here.
Go 1-1. Yes.
I was like, well, okay, maybe. Last night was not the game nobody was circling that one as a game that we could win. Even being at home on senior night, Auburn is about the worst possible matchup for Missouri. Just nobody to contend with their front court.
Yeah, the game before this against Ole Miss was one of those where it's like, okay, this could be. Ole Miss was only favored by like 1.5. It was in Columbia, and they played fairly well. I mean, Missouri scored 78 points, but the defense let them down. Ole Miss scores 84. And yeah, I don't know. Ole Miss shoots 65% from two, 39% from three. They made 10 threes. Out-rebounded Missouri by quite a bit. Sean East is still putting up numbers, and you mentioned it on Discord, like the announcers every game are just like gushing over Sean East, and I kind of get it. Like, there's two teams playing, you got to say something positive about Missouri, and SEC network announcers are like notoriously pro all the coaches in the SEC. Like, they never think a coach should be fired or anything like that. So it's just interesting to see.
You think they should be calling for jobs publicly?
No, not necessarily, but like I don't know. They just, yeah, I guess that's kind of their job.
They're very positive, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they're saying stuff like Sean East, one of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
And Tamar Bates has had a terrific SEC season and stuff like, I mean,
I guess kind of in a vacuum, you can
like,
kind of say some of that stuff.
Those two are clearly head and shoulders the best two players on the team, and then there's just literally nothing after that.
Yeah.
You do have Nick Honor 100% hard fall rate in every game.
That's true. If you're doing like a first team all get on the floor, he's your point guard 100% of the time.
He just gets back up every time too.
Yeah.
He just wants more.
And half of them, he's doing it on purpose. So,
hey, somebody's got to start drawing some fouls, man. At least he's trying.
Yeah, to be completely honest, that is one thing that is starting to improve. After Dennis Gates like publicly flamed them, they did shoot 35 free throws against Auburn and 27 against Ole Miss.
Hey, there we go.
But the shooting everywhere else was awful against Auburn. And to talk about Nick Honor for a moment, like he's doing some of what he did last year, which is just like eat minutes, play okay defense,
shoot transition threes.
Yeah, he's not making the transition three like
he's shooting them
in those big moments. They're not falling. He still is shooting 38% from three, but he's shooting 35% from two. He can't do anything inside the 3-point line. And yeah,
that's actually hilarious that somebody with that much, with as high of usage as he has, is legitimately shooting better from three than two.
Yeah. Yeah. His like, effective, his like true shooting percentage, effective field goal percentage, stuff like that is like held up by his 3-point shooting, or it would just be abysmal because he's attempted over 100 twos. Sean East is literally at times the lone bright spot, and you can tell at times like he knows it. It feels like because he'll try to do too much, but
that's still our best offense typically.
Yeah. Against Auburn, it was a weird game for him. He did finish with 21 points, which is the 6th game in a row he scored over 20, but he got 21 points. He only made 4 field goal attempts. He was 12 of 13 from the free throw line. He was 4 of 17 from the field. And that's one of those things where like, yeah, this team's going to score around 70 points and somebody's going to have to score them. So it's probably going to be Sean East.
And somehow they're worse defensively, I think.
Yeah. Well, because they're not getting steals anywhere close to the same rate as last year.
Yeah, that was actually one thing about last year's team was half-court defense was a weakness. Mm-hmm. And this year, it's worse without the steals.
Yeah. Yeah, Missouri this year only 80th in turnover percentage defense, 56th in steal percentage defense. Last year, their ratings were 6th in the country and 2nd in the country in those two stats. So yeah, weirdly enough, their overall KenPom defensive rating was worse last year, but we knew that. We talked about that maybe the entire last half of the season last year, that
they were just fooling the computers.
Yes. Yeah. That's like, it's too weird. They're too bad at certain things and too good at other things. That's just confusing everything.
Yeah.
This year, it makes a little bit more sense, I feel like. I did see, I think it was Gabe DeArmond who tweeted, looking at KenPom, the luck rating.
Yeah.
And he had to revise his tweet or post a correction. He first thought they were second worst in luck rating. Mm-hmm. They're actually dead last in all of Division I basketball. When you look at their performance as a team compared to their record, KenPom considers them the unluckiest team in all of Division I basketball.
Yeah, basically way below expectation.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were actually just talking about this a little while ago. It felt like last year we used up all of the luck in one season. Basically, we had 3 or 4 different buzzer beating wins. I mean, that is 15 to 20% of our wins were on last second, just crazy shots. Yeah. And, even with the talent we had last year, it felt like, okay, this is going to regress a little bit, where next year we're probably not going to, win 3 to 4 exciting games on buzzer beating shots. And obviously it's been very far from that. But so going from what felt like very fortunate last year to completely the opposite. I actually think Missouri's record is worse than they
than it should
actually
be.
are.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like give me any. I mean, this hasn't happened very often. What we're expecting to happen here, where Missouri loses every single conference game. I would say any team that happens to, they're going to be pretty low. They're going to be down there on the luck.
Sure.
It's just, you're going to have some bad luck. Things win against you if you did not win a single conference game. But yeah, shout out to the fans. It is stunning, I think, the way the fans have still been showing up to these home games and the energy in the arena and stuff. There were some pictures floating around of like the senior night ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd hadn't quite filled in yet. There wasn't as much buzz for Connor Vanover and Jesus Carolero Martin senior night as there was Kobe Brown, Demoy Hodge. So that's understandable. But once the game has started, like they're loud and the students are still showing up.
Yeah.
And I just feel like shows you like the goodwill that Dennis Gates has earned from last year, just carrying over. And
yeah, I mean, that has to be it.
Yeah.
I think people still see the vision of Dennis Gates, and it does seem like, basketball specifically at Mizzou has always kind of had that loyalty, even in some down years. I don't know, man. Sometimes it does feel like the good years are a little bit more rewarding sometimes when we get through some years like this, but it just doesn't feel like it's happened enough to be rewarding.
The years like this have been too frequent recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
this is just beyond anything.
Yeah. But Matthew Tilley from Patreon supporter, he was there. He got his Star Wars lightsaber, Mizzou lightsaber.
Yeah,
they were giving those out.
Yeah.
That helps, I guess, if you have good giveaways.
True. Everybody likes Star Wars.
True. I saw, this is completely off topic. I saw people saying that Dune greater than Star Wars. Not only that, it's basically a better version of Star Wars.
Okay. I haven't seen the Dune movie, so I can't weigh in, but I kind of love Star Wars, so it'd be tough. It'd be tough to top.
Yeah. You'd have to take the mindset of like, I love Star Wars, and people are saying this is even better of the same type of thing.
Maybe I need to see it.
Yeah. I have to give it a try.
Okay. Then
they'll be having Dune night at Mizzou basketball. Everybody's eyes will be blue or whatever goes on in those movies.
I wouldn't know.
There'll be giant worms coming out of the floor. Missouri's locked in the 14 seed in the SEC tournament and
locked it in
solidly. Like that's one thing. Don't even have to worry about.
Count on that.
Yes. So it'll be interesting to see. If Dennis Gates had his way, though, Missouri would probably be in the NCAA tournament if they expanded it to 300 teams or whatever.
How large would the tournament have to be for Missouri to be on the bubble?
I honestly, I think recently I looked at barttorvik.com and he projects the tournament field anytime throughout the season, even in the preseason. And Missouri he has the bubble and everything. I want to say Missouri was, but he goes all the way through all of Division I. Missouri was 139 spots off the bubble.
That's pretty far.
Yeah.
So if the tournament included over, let's just say 60% of college basketball, Missouri's on the bubble?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe they make it in.
Maybe.
If you want something to look forward to, we can talk a little bit basketball recruiting. Missouri will be hosting 4-star guard Dorian Jones from Cleveland, Ohio. He has 2 visits lined up, one to Missouri, one to Rutgers in April. So there's a name to look for in the class of 2025. And it is the time of year where coaches are going to start getting fired. Some have already been fired. And that means if you're a Mizzou basketball diehard, we're going to look at every coach that's fired and just look at their roster and see who could come to Columbia, who could be enticed to come to Como with a little bit of NIL, maybe, a player that was recruited out of high school. We're going to be looking for all that type of stuff. And we've got a big one already, folks. Pepperdine has fired head coach Lorenzo Romar.
It's an old name.
Yeah, you may have heard of that name before. He was previously the head coach at Washington, and they have a sophomore forward on their team at Pepperdine named Javon Porter.
That's a familiar name.
That is a familiar name. So if this all sounds very familiar, it's because several years ago, actually coming off the last time Missouri had a season this bad under Kim Anderson, they went to the NCAA tournament the following year by landing a player named Porter who was going to be coached by Lorenzo Romar.
2 of them.
It's happening. Yeah. So Lorenzo Romar was the coach at Washington. Michael Porter Jr. and Jonte were committed to Washington. Michael Porter Sr. was an assistant there. Then you know what happened. The rest is history. He got fired. Michael Porter Sr. comes to Mizzou. And
Lorenzo Romar really seems to be talented at getting fired.
yeah, he's good at 2 things: recruiting Porter brothers and then getting fired before they can finish their careers. But yeah, Javon Porter, 6'11", 16 points, 6 rebounds per game. He's the real deal, I think. I mean, he can step out and make threes. He was injured to start this season. And this is pure speculation. He's not entered the transfer portal. Transfer portal's not open yet. His coach was fired. I think one of his teammates has already announced they're going to transfer. So all we can do is cross our fingers and see if he wants to come home.
We're going to give a double shout out to Matthew. He brought up a good point in the Discord about the Robin Pynchon connection. Yes. I believe that is the Porter's aunt.
Yes.
Their mom's sister, I think.
I think so.
She's probably gone. Like almost 100% is going to be fired from the women's basketball team.
Yeah.
So does that complicate things?
Well,
Maybe.
It does bring up the point, like,
what are their connections?
Is there really any connection to Columbia left?
Yeah.
The only thing, I don't know, like, does Aaron Rose so young compared to them? I was trying to think, like, would they have played together at Tolton? Would that be a draw? I don't know. Feels like a stretch.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm doing here. That's what this whole
desperate.
exercise is, basically. But yeah, I'd love to see what Coach Gates can do with 6'11" Porter brother who can make threes. Another name from Mizzou past was a player that we recruited out of high school that went to Michigan, Taurus Reed. He played at Chaminade, I believe. 6'10", forward. Michigan is really bad. It's expected that they probably move on from Juwan Howard. So maybe Taurus Reed in the transfer portal. I'm basically at this point just looking at 24/7 Sports, looking at players from Missouri, any kind of connection. I'm looking at players from Cleveland. I'm looking at...
Just filter college basketball rosters by anybody taller than 6'10".
Yeah. And...
We'll take them.
Yeah. It's just...
I mean, honestly, that has to be... I mean, everything... They need everything in the transfer portal, but that has to be priority number 1. Like, back up the Brinks truck for somebody that can control the front court.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, just whatever system you want to run that doesn't emphasize... bigs on offense as much, which I don't even think that's the case necessarily. I think
haven't had the personnel.
Exactly. And we watch this. I watch this Missouri team play, and I see the players just literally being too slow on the rotations. It's like you can kind of see what they're trying to do defensively.
Rick Pitino had a point.
I forgot about that. Yeah, he was right, potentially. But those days are over. We're going to start recruiting fast players who can get to their guys on rotations. Another random name that was just like too enticing that I couldn't pass it up. Talk about backing up the Brinks truck. New Mexico as a freshman, JT Toppin.
Obi Toppin?
I think he's related, but I'm not sure. He's a 6'9" freshman averaging 12 points, 9 rebounds, and shooting 62% from the field. I looked at his NBA draft. New Mexico's good this year, by the way. I was looking at his NBA draft profile. Not expected to be drafted. He was like the 100th to 90th best prospect on the sites I was looking at. and zero connection to Missouri or anything, but I don't know. I'm like
We need good players.
scraping the bottom of the barrel for any type of.
There'll be plenty of names.
Yeah.
Here and then probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
I'm ready for it. So yeah, Javon Porter though, Tyrus Reed, much more of a connection there.
Yeah.
Let's go get a couple of those guys.
It sounds somewhat realistic.
Switching gears a little bit here, unless you want to talk about basketball anymore.
Probably not.
Missouri has not hired an athletic director yet, but they just recently announced they have put together a search committee. I thought we were past that stage already. But
Yeah, I would have thought we were past that.
yeah. Is there any timeline on this? Like, what can we expect?
No.
Yeah, I mean, apparently.
No, they're taking their time. Can you explain what a search firm adds to the equation that the athletic department can't already do?
I don't know. I mean, I looked at the committee that was assembled, and it's like some outside people, some just like community leaders and board of curators people.
The board of curators, they don't have Facebook? Like, look people up on Facebook?
I don't know.
Search on Google, good ADs. Like
we put together a list already.
Come on.
Can you just call these people, see if they're interested?
cold call them.
Yeah. So yeah, no athletic director yet. I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe we're needing to wait till basketball season winds down a little bit more so that you're kind of more in between things. But we'll update you if we find out anything more there. Switching gears to football. Let's see. There's been a few things in the news recently. The NCAA football video game has been in the news constantly. And Luther Burden and Brady Cook specifically tweeted that they are in the game. And that
That's good news.
EA Sports announced like over 10,000 college football players have opted in to being in the game, their likeness and everything. And, you know,
Only one player's opted out.
one somewhat high-profile player has opted out, Arch Manning at Texas, but he was not even the starter this coming season.
That's probably why he opted out.
I guess.
He was too embarrassed.
You think that's the deal?
I don't know. He literally, like, the quote was like from his people was that he was focusing on playing football on the real field or something like that. Does he know he doesn't have to actually play the game?
Yeah.
He can just be like, yeah, I'll opt in.
Yeah.
And just like his likeness is on the game.
Yeah.
His name.
Not that I care either way, I guess. And like, I don't know. It's kind of funny. Like, surely you're going to be able to just edit a player and turn him into him easily.
You can do that.
Anyway. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of hype about the game, and it's just going to be so fun throwing passes to Luther Burden.
Yeah.
And the problem is Missouri's running game, they're not going to rate these guys highly, and one of them's going to rush for 1,000 yards probably.
Yeah. I feel like I'm thinking of like the older games where you're probably playing with like last year's team. So you might be playing with like Cody Schrader, but that's probably not going to happen with like the current iteration.
I would think
with like NIL stuff, like they're probably going to be able to update it.
It's going to come out in like July or something, and then it'll be like kind of they're going to try to release it for like hype leading into the college football season. So yeah, that makes sense.
You were streaming NCAA 14 last football season.
Yeah.
On the MSP Twitch account.
I'll have to start that back up again.
Yeah.
It's hard to find time for something like that.
Yeah.
That's something that you have to like really carve out. You can't do anything else.
Yep. No interruptions.
Yes. But I'd like to get back doing that a little bit. Yeah, I was playing the games as the season progressed.
Yeah.
Lost to Georgia.
Very realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd even like the stat lines would be like, oh, that's a Luther Burden stat line right there.
Exactly.
It'd be like 8 catches for 140 yards or something.
I'm like super nerdy on that kind of stuff too. So I'll like make the settings to where I'm like producing realistic results.
Yeah.
And I like tweak stuff if it's a little bit unrealistic. I'm excited to do all that kind of stuff in the new game. Just, yeah, maybe we'll do our separate video that's like video game hype / what we hope the game looks like. Let us know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in hearing about. Mizzou, Coach Drink, he likes to stay in the news, likes to have that top of mind awareness just across the SEC and probably in recruits' households and stuff like that. He's been in the news recently He was asked about talking to Josh Heupel after the Tennessee game where he said, "We stand on business, Josh." And everybody just loves talking about that.
It's a great quote.
It is.
It's hilarious.
And Tennessee fans just never not being salty about that, which is just...
We stand on business, Josh.
Exactly. I saw a Tennessee fan on Twitter saying that he said it to him like as he was walking away.
It's not true.
Just completely false.
Yeah, said it right to his face.
They're just having to rewrite history in their brains because of how bad
It's called coping.
How bad that hurt them. But he was asked about it, and he stood by it, and he said he wouldn't do it differently. He said he doesn't care how he looks in the media, how he looks at all, except in the locker room.
That's what he cares about.
Exactly. His exact quote was, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
His exact quote was, "I'd rather look like a jack in the media and to people at home than to look like a jackass," he missed it, on the
Hey, 50%.
to my players in the locker room.
Yes. Well, there goes our family-friendly rating.
I didn't know there were two of them.
You got to stay ready
That's
on
true.
that.
We didn't warn him.
You were only saying it
You
once.
nailed the first one,
Oh,
producer
yeah,
Cameron.
he did.
Thank you.
He gave him lots of lead up. To
I mean,
it.
I guess I get it. I mean,
I love it, honestly.
yeah. He wants to be a man of his word to his team. That seems
Yeah.
important.
He said he told the defense that if they stood on business, he would let Josh Heupel know that that's exactly what they did. And it happened.
He let him know.
But yeah, I mean, like, I feel like we've talked about on the show, like how he's kind of a goofy guy and like, you know, we don't necessarily always love everything he has to say, but literally he's explaining to us none of that matters. The guys in the locker room have his back, and that's all he's worried about. And that's all I want to hear from the head coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm from day one. We've said these antics, we'll hate him if we're losing. We'll love
Yeah.
him if he's winning. And we love it.
Other fan bases are going to hate him,
Yep.
but that's also just more fun for us.
Yep. Yeah, seriously. Do they not realize that? That like
Yeah.
when they get mad and stuff, like
Yeah.
call him a nerd or a loser or whatever, they dork.
Yeah.
Dorkwits.
Yes, yes.
Like we just eat that for breakfast. Gives us fuel for the day.
Truly. And, you know, the team has to feel the same way. Like, and the fact that they want to, they're, as long as they're on the same page with all that stuff, literally that's all that matters. To that point, new edge defensive line coach Brian Early was talking about him sort of like integrating himself into the program. And he talked about the culture that Eli Drinkwitz has built. And he said, you know, he called around to people that he knew that was familiar with him and talked to the offensive line coach, whose name slips my mind because he came from Houston as well. And he just said everything he's heard has been positive. And I don't know, I just, you know, we joke around about going back to that. If you could only keep two or only keep one of the top three people in Mizzou athletics, like just every single day, it becomes more clear that the correct answer is hold on to Coach Drink as tight as you can.
Yeah. He's truly like a unique coach. He's a unique personality. He's doing things his way, and it took a little bit of time, but I think the seeds he has been planting, it's blooming.
Yeah. And one of the ways that that's happening that everybody's been talking about recently is with this offensive line that they're going to roll out this coming season. People have been paying attention to the lineups that have been out there in spring practices. Spring game, honestly, right around the corner. So we're going to get to see some of that. But let me just throw this out for you, this projected starting offensive line. And let me just get your first impression of it.
Nice and slow.
Starting offensive line 2024. I'm going to go from left to right. We've got at left tackle, transfer from Oklahoma, sophomore, Caden Green, 6'5", 316.
It's a good start.
Left guard, I've got penciled in redshirt freshman, Logan Reichert. Check these stats, 6'6", 369.
It's a big fella.
Holding it down in the middle, he's back. Junior center, Connor Tollison, 6'4", 286.
It's kind of actually almost be humorous to see Riker and Tollison next to each other
Yes.
on the line because Rikert's got 100 pounds on him.
Going to make him look small.
Yeah.
And Tollison is 6'4", 286. At right guard, I've got Cameron Johnson, 6'4", 305. He's the only senior on this offensive line that I have projected here. And then at right tackle, we've got Armand Membou, junior, 6'3", 314.
Absolutely incredible.
Looks like an elite offensive line on paper. Like
Yeah.
Logan Reichert, redshirt freshman, not played.
A little bit of an unknown.
Yeah.
But he has the pedigree. He was like a 4-star recruit and has obviously the size.
Yeah. And the coaching staff has been ready to get him out there. Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't going to play last year. They weren't going to burn the red shirt, but like,
Yeah.
he's already been talked about.
Yeah, he's not going to be out there if he can't play, and I definitely think he can. Outside of just his size, I think he's a great player, and I think that's going to be legitimately one of the best offensive lines in the country. And one thing I love about it is, like you said, 4 of those 5 guys are going to be eligible to return next year. So we're young, and 4 of those 5 guys, the same guys that are young, are from Missouri.
Yeah.
So it's just you couldn't really draw it up better than that.
No. And we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, and you mentioned Jackson Cantwell.
Yes.
Obviously, like
There probably aren't very many 2026 recruits that are already like household names.
Yeah.
But he's one of them.
And that's not a new thing either. Like,
No. Yeah,
people-
we've known about
him for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to see him slide into this this pedigree that we're setting up here.
Yeah. Jackson Cantwell, 2026 offensive tackle from Nixa, Missouri. So
Just
probably
like Jason Bourne.
exactly. Yeah. I'll probably just, see him around town or something,
Yes.
He probably lives down the street from me or something.
Just like Jason Bourne.
Exactly. But legitimately has like taking the trajectory of like somebody who could be just one of the greatest offensive linemen to ever live. Like
Yes.
that's like the trajectory he's on right now. So
As a sophomore in high school, he's listed at 6'7.5". I can't remember his weight that was
it
listed.
was like 300, I think.
Yeah.
You just his parents are both like Olympic athletes.
Yeah. 7.5, 300 pounds.
Yeah,
Sophomore
just
in high school.
Literally, like it was built in a lab to play offensive tackle.
Yeah. Or a video game. Yeah. But yeah, back to this actual offensive line. I just couldn't be more excited to see. And like, it's like set up perfectly where you have this experience and the talent. Logan Reichert, the youngest guy, but the most like physically imposing, sandwiched between Caden Green and Connor Tollison, who you imagine will just be super solid at those positions. So it really just looks perfect. And that's not to mention, as we get closer to actual football season, maybe after the spring game and stuff, we'll look at positions a little bit more closely and see what the depth looks like. But for a projected starting offensive line, doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. Just to have that luxury is something I feel like we've wanted for a really long time, and it seems like there's not very many seasons you could point to that we have that kind of talent and experience on an offensive line. And one of the seasons you can point to is one of the best seasons Missouri football has ever had. So in 2013 being the season I'm thinking of. So I think a good offensive line and success on the field are highly correlated.
The stats would probably bear that out. Oh, so that's just a little positivity, something to look forward to end the show on. Anything else for the folks, Kyle?
Probably, but I can't think of it right now.
Okay, we'll tell them next week. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Brian D. Moore, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Tim Keynes, Tyler Harsel, Brandon Garofalo, Brandon Hanks, Matthew Tilley, Luis Hernandez, and Joshua Jacobson. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. And we love you. You can find this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next week.